Well met, adventurers! It's been weeks of planning. You've finally got to the session where your players have come up against the BBEG, your bad guy, for the first time. You've planned this down to every detail. You've got an entire monologue that you want to say, whether or not the bad guy is saying that well done for the heroes getting this far, but they're going to go no further. Be it that they want to expose maybe a little bit of their motivation or potentially future plans, like little hooks that let the players know what's going to be going on in the future, like breadcrumbing them as to their decisions. Or maybe you've planned for them to go on a massive insulting barrage at the players they've ended up in their clutches and that they are doomed. Either way, you start going through this magnificent monologue of which you prepared when the barbarian does this.
Enough talk!
But don't worry, don't tear up that speech just quite yet, because here are some ideas you can use. Let's get into this. Yes, it is I, Nathaniel Gomezian, shopkeeper and proprietor of Gaming Treasure Chest. I said in today's video, we're going to be going through the villain monologue and basically how you can get into it and through it without your players completely interrupting it. Because if you've just set this up as being your main bad guy with maybe a couple of henchmen and the players coming in, they are going to initiate combat when they start speaking, regardless of what you have planned out. Because in our heads, I know that this is a thing, because it's the same kind of trap that I've fallen for myself. We see this as a kind of film, movie, and the villain always gets off their crazy monologue. As I said, be it describing why, their motivations behind what they're doing, so the players get a kind of idea about, this is how unhinged they are, or potentially how realistic they are, but in a very evil way, and basically the players still want to stop them to defend the world that they are in, leading breadcrumbs maybe towards what their future plans are in terms of whether or not they're going to hit this certain place, a good job that we've caught you now before we're going to initiate plan B of getting hold of some kind of crazy material which only is in a certain place, which basically your players can then find out that information because they know that that's the kind of ore or residuum or whatever the hell they're after, and therefore can make plans in the future. Basically breadcrumbing them to what the next step of the plan is and then what they can potentially do to thwart it. All of these kind of things you do want to try and get across to your players, but I said it's not like a film. Your players will immediately try to initiate combat as soon as they can because they just want to take down this bad guy, because the second they take down this bad guy, the problem goes away. So they ain't got time to listen to his really well prepared, articulated speech. No time for that at all. And you need to understand that from their point of view, if there's nothing stopping them, why wouldn't they? So in this video, I've got a few ideas of a few things that you can do to be able to get through your monologue and be able to leave those hints or whatever, even if it's just full on just insulting the players, if that's what your big bad is like. Basically giving them reasons to hate the bad guy and want to stop them and thwart their plans. The first way you can do this is very simply by starting your monologue, and if the players try to initiate combat and try to attack your big bad, they can smile as the blade pierces straight through them and does nothing to them, because they are an astral projection of themselves and not actually there at all to be able to take any form of damage or whatnot. Some might call this cheap, but it can also show your players just how powerful the enemy that they are against, because they are able to project this astral projection from wherever. The players don't know where they are, and basically that is therefore very intimidating, while they smile and potentially said minions or henchmen might die along the way, but they don't care about that. They are mainly just here to be able to insult the players because or maybe to admire the players for getting as far as they have, being a thorn in their side, but now it must come to an end, but obviously most of the time the players are going to get out of it. Another really fun thing which leans its way into the astral projection kind of plan is that if your big bad is potentially a politician-y kind of thing, and that they are in the middle of a royal court, or even if maybe your players have found out that they're going to be in a secret meeting with a very kind of isolated area, this is a great way to be able to put that astral projection in there, because it's a thing where the players think they have cornered the BBEG, because basically maybe in a courtroom, as I said, or in a very secluded location, and so the players figure, they've got the upper hand on the villain because they've like weren't expected to be ambushed at this moment in time, but then the table switches as it turns out that, as I said, it is an astral projection. That is an amazing thing to be able to do. You can even potentially do the thing where maybe the players send the message of let's bargain kind of thing, to be able to try and lure the BBG out, and the idea of them coming to this place and then basically players going, haha, we were lying, and trying to kill them, and then which is the BBG, just it going through them smirking and going, did you really think I would fall for this simplistic plan? Of course it's not really me. Things like that are a lot of fun, and so the astral projection route does have some fun little things that you can play around with. Another way of being able to do your magnificently villainous monologue is that the players could be in a location, as I said, yet again, maybe henchman, big bad is there, and they can start attacking, and this time the BBG is attacking back. It actually is a very hard fight. They might still be able to get off their speech. I said, with this one, it might be a more hasty speech, but they might actually still do their speech while attacking and whatnot. But the fun bit about this one is that the players might actually defeat the BBG, and as they fall to the floor, their body wrinkles up and it turns into a doppelganger, because it turns out it wasn't them at all. They had sent a doppelganger to the situation. And actually, it's one of those fun things whereby it shows the players potentially how hard this battle is going to be, because it can be a really hard fought battle, and then it turns out it's not even the real guy. When they pat down this doppelganger's clothes, maybe they find a note in there which is from the real BBG going, haha, better luck next time, or something along those kind of lines to let the players know this isn't the real guy. And what is magnificent about setting up the cleverness of doppelgangers in their place is the players never actually know if who they're interacting with is the real big bad or more doppelgangers, or people who are in their places. Because let's face it, dictators around the world use fake stand-ins who look like them to be able to go to things and whatnot to avoid assassination. So why wouldn't your big bads do a similar kind of thing? And in this world, there are such things as doppelgangers that can take the exact look of things, so why would they not use these things for their betterment? A really important thing to note about these first few strategies is they are really good to throw at your players early on in the game, because if you want to introduce your players to the BBAG, like the big bad, then having things like this means your players can end up in a confrontation, actually be victorious, but then find out that things are not as they thought and the big bad was never there to begin with, and so they are a lot more cleverer than what the party might have first thought. And what's nice about that is because sometimes when you want to introduce your big bad, if it is actually them and they are in a fight and the players win and they end up either running away or being very cowardly, having to use a teleportation or something like that, a cheap way to escape, then potentially that's going to make your players think that they're actually quite weak. Why are we worrying about this guy? We've already proven we can defeat his henchman and potentially defeat him. I mean, he pushed out and teleported away. And it can make the players think that the big bad is not actually as big of a problem as potentially you want them to. You want your big bad to have an aura of menace and whatnot, and for your players to be slightly afraid of them. And your players having past records of being able to defeat the big bad, it's not really going to give them that menacing aura that you potentially do. But it being doubles or an illusion makes it so that the players know that they're dealing with somebody who's far more powerful than what they might have first thought. That's why they're very nice plans for a potential first meeting if you want it to go down to a combat. The next suggestion is that your big bad is very powerful, and when your players try to attack them, it turns out that there is a barrier of force or something like that, which actually stops the players from being able to get to them because they're able to produce such a powerful spell. It can also be other spell kind of things that you could do to the party, like potentially whole person on the entire party if the big bad has a lot of mages and such that basically can whole person to the entire party, each one doing that. This is being able to show your players that they've got a lot of power behind them, and it allows them to be able to deliver their monologue without having any problems of the players. The players might be trying pounding their fist against the barrier of force or whatever. They could try to dispel it, But as I said, like this gives your villain more time to be able to get out their magnificent villainous dialogue. What's also really good about potentially the whole person then getting some of the means to tie them up is that it means the villain has captured your party and can deliver their monologue and then potentially laugh at them and put them in the dungeons, put them in some cells, put them in a very James Bond-esque way of an elaborate death which is easily escapable, and therefore the players can then escape and continue on with their mission, knowing that the big bad is powerful and has the ability to be able to capture them, because they haven't actually in that case dealt with them head on. Now obviously, as I said, if you do go down a barrier of force or whatnot and the players are able to dispel it or something along those kind of lines, I said having these mages hold person and then trying to tie them up is a slightly more less reliable way. But if you just have your big bad have enough time to be able to deliver their monologue and then potentially do go down the route of a time stop, and then suddenly the players don't know what's happened and the villain's gone because they've portaled out or done whatever. I said, no, it's a cheap trick, and I said and potentially make your players think that they're cowardly, but it is a way that you can do it. I said I prefer to go down the route where they do imprison the players, if you be able to get the roles well enough, because obviously these things all do come down to roles. But this is an idea that you can think about putting in front of your players, because if you can capture them and then put them into a prison situation where they therefore have to escape, then it means that maybe they might be able to overpower some of these cultists, these henchmen, these whatever who are working with the big bad. And like I said, they get a victory that way as they escape, but also there is that knowing that this big bad is quite a problem and that they have to deal with them. Another way to be able to deliver that cold, chilling, villainous monologue is, bear in mind, yet again, magic is in this world and there is things like the sending spell and stuff like that. But imagine that your big bad sends it to all the players simultaneously and sends them the same message. So let's say that your players actually do something where they do thwart what is potentially going to be one of the big bad's plans, in terms of they wanted to get this certain weapon, or they were trying to get this certain ritual to go off, but your players stopped it. Then having this voice, this chilling voice appear in all of their minds simultaneously, like a slow clapping, and basically telling them, well done, but if you think that this is me done, you are mistaken, and basically then going through their villainous monologue. That's another way you can do it. So the villain isn't even in the room. They could be, yet again, anywhere, and how cold and chilling that is. Basically the villain can see them potentially, the players don't know. This voice is just coming from inside their heads, but it is still potentially mocking them or telling them you've done well so far. Yet again, whatever you want this monologue to be, but that's a really chilling way of doing it. Another way of following down that kind of route is, when in Harry Potter, Voldemort messages everyone. Imagine the idea that basically everyone in this certain town or region or whatever hears this same message coming from the big bad, a warning, basically telling them that they are doomed, and their players being able to not just only gauge their own reactions, but being able to see NPCs' reactions, townsfolk and whatnot, screaming or running for help or whatever. That is very powerful and chilling, because it basically shows how powerful they are, that they can project to everyone immediately, V for Vendetta, if you've ever seen that film, when he projects himself on all the televisions and such, all everything. Delivering a message like that can be very impactful as well, because the players are hearing it, but as I said, it's the NPCs as well, in a certain region, or could be the entire world if you want it to be that powerful, this message of which they're sending to people. It can be very intimidating to see what happens because of that. It can also be that maybe that message, if you do want to go down that Harry Potter way, basically being, this party is a thorn in my side. If you guys deal with it, then I promise the destruction of the world won't involve you or won't involve your town. And then it could potentially put NPCs against the party. You could go obviously that's not a very articulate way of doing that, but there is ways that you can do that in messaging or whatnot. I basically said, I'll spare your family, I'll spare whatever if you deal with this party, and then describing the party, and it might not get everyone in the town wanting to kill them, but it could potentially get some people. And I said the idea of that could be quite fascinating to see what happens. And the final method I'm going to very quickly cover is because my DM used it against me and my party and we thought it was fantastic, is basically your big bad having some kind of requirement to be able to deal damage to them. And what I mean by that is in our campaign, we met the big bad and they started going about their business kind of thing. Basically, we had beaten this dragon that was part of their team. They then appeared, congratulated us and whatnot, and basically started to make their way towards the dragon corpse because they wanted the dragon's heart to be able to pluck these curses that the dragon had done, like basically blood curses, and this villain wanted to particularly take control of one of these blood curses, and so they needed the dragon's heart to do that. We tried to obviously stop them while they were saying kind of what their motivations were and whatnot like that, but we couldn't do any damage. Only one of our party members was able to land hits on the big bad, and that's because that party member had basically become like a champion of a god, and so they had that kind of extra energy because they were like a kind of divined by a god, and so all the rest of us were on missions as well from certain deities to become their champions, and that was what was required to take down the big bad, is that you had to become the champion of a god. And so something like that, putting in little details like that, like the villain can only be attacked if this certain requirement is met by the players, is number one, like something which plays on the players like, why am I not doing any damage? I'm using these things, why is nothing happening? But also when you see something hitting and then trying to work out why is that hitting, it can be one of those kind of things whereby like it leads the party down this certain thing. And also I said it shows how powerful the villain is because they can take all these hits that you're throwing at them and it's literally doing nothing to them. Like I said, only one player was actually landing any hits, but obviously it was more easy for them to deal with one of us than to deal with all four of us kind of thing. And so obviously the villain was very powerful, and so therefore like we weren't able to do anything. And the thing of it was, they weren't even trying to stop us or kill us or anything like that. They were just going about their day-to-day business. That just shows how like unconcerned they were about their own safety or about us being a threat at all. Like that is another really magnificent thing you can do with a big bad, is if they are massively nonchalant and uncaring about the party, because they know that they are far more powerful than them. So why would they stoop to even caring or trying to kill them in a moment of meeting them? It's beneath them kind of thing. Does a man care about the ants on the ground? Does he choose to step on them if they are but minor inconveniences to his day? That kind of energy. So those are the ideas that I had for you in this video. I would love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below about what you think about these ideas of being able to get through your monologue without having to worry about the players just going straight in for the attack. Or if there's any ideas that you personally use yourself to be able to like deliver these things. I said, because I know that it's not film and whatnot, but sometimes we like to do these things in a cinematic way to make our big bad like that more villainous, and that you want to get through their magnificent like articulation of how villainous they are and whatnot. As I said, like for a multitude of different reasons that I've already laid out. So I said I'd love to hear that down in the comment section down below. As well as if you enjoyed this video and want to see more things like it, then why not consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video and all that stuff, because anything that you could do like that does help. There is also the Discord channel if you want to join that. I'm hoping to cultivate a lovely Discord server of all of us being able to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, be you players, DMs and whatnot. Let's face it, most of you are going to be dungeon masters because that's what most of my content is put towards, but the idea of being able to help each other out, and that's the kind of what I want to make. So if you do want to get involved in that, so I do realize it's not a very active server at the moment, but we can change that. So if you do want to hop into that, the link is down below. Also, I do know that money is quite tight for people, so do not worry, but if you are able to support the channel financially, there is the Patreon link down below. There are some free resources in there, so if you just want to join that Patreon as a free member and not pay, please do so, because there are definitely free things for puzzles that I've done in the past on my puzzle videos. There is stuff in that Patreon that you can get for free as just by joining as a free member. But if you do want to support financially, there is also some STLs which you can get there, and I do plan on adding more and more to it, as well as obviously if you do also want to potentially buy yourself some gear and whatnot that is like Dungeons and Dragons themed presents for DMs, players, whoever, then there is the Etsy shop of gaming treasure chests, where all the stuff on there is stuff that I have designed myself and will 3D print and send to you, because I only sell things which I have designed, because I just think it's cheap to buy other people's designs and then try to flaunt them as yourself. I think there's a little bit more craft to it if you design them yourself. So if you want to check that out. Yet again, links down below. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you've watched this far. I hope you have a great day. And until next time, goodbye.